You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
First podcast back. Been gone in Hawaii, I don't know, 10, 11 days, something like that. Lots of fun, but it's also good to be back. It's also be good talking to you guys. Can't talk quite yet. Need to brush off some of the rust here, right? I tried doing one podcast in Maui, and because of all the variables with the video and the audio quality and lighting, and you can't really be outside, I did one, and we didn't have enough time to kind of really analyze the audio portion of it, and I didn't want to record a bunch more if it was going to be bad and the editors couldn't work with it. So just did one podcast in Hawaii, but I am ready to get back into it. What are we going to talk about today? And I'll be talking about some of my trip, if you guys even care. I am going to have probably a couple of videos coming out over maybe one this weekend and one next week, just kind of what I was doing in Hawaii. Did a trip, Molokini Crater snorkeling trip. That was super fun. And just a bunch of running around, shooting the sunset, just fun, ridiculous tourist stuff, right? But let's jump on in here. 13 arrested after police kettle. I love that word, kettle. Over 100 protesters in Portland's Pearl District. I know this is a story from last Friday, so coming up on a week. Why am I doing that? Because I think it's a story that a lot of people wanted to hear, and I've got a second one, and it's basically Black community leaders saying, hey, you protesters are not helping out. You're kind of jacking our movement here with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, and they're actually coming out and kind of calling out Antifa. Let's go with that. All right, so let's get into it. This is an Oregon Live news story. Police, or maybe it's not. Yeah, it is. It is. Police arrest. So the first story I'm going to read is about the kettling. I mean, that's some exciting stuff, right? We've actually moved beyond reimagining and rethinking doing something about the protesters to kettling them. That's basically just quadring them off and you guys stay there. We need you to stay here until we do some stuff. Police arrested 13 protesters after detaining a group of more than 100 in the Pearl District for hours Friday night into early Saturday morning. Officers kettled the protesters, employing a controversial police tactic used to contain people within a perimeter. I think it's great. I just do. Kettle the heck out of those people. The practice has been at the center of multiple lawsuits and criticized by civil rights advocates and, to an extent, Mayor Ted Wheeler, because they want to keep protesting with zero impediment to their protesting. They just want to go out and do their peaceful protesting, which, in Portland, there is no such thing. It's just not a thing. So police and, Mayor Ted's been in Portland has been talking about, we're going to do something. We're really going to do something here. We're going to get after these protesters because unlike how, Mayor Ted was basically, was he videoed or I think he took selfies with the protesters this past summer? We've kind of turned the corner there. We're no longer referencing to them as the peaceful protesters. And the second article I'm reading is basically what we've been talking about for months, literally months. It's like, all right, when's this going to end? When are these businesses going to stop being graffitied up the outside? When are they going to stop getting ransacked? When are we going to stop the bashing of the windows, the vandalism to all these businesses just trying to get going? When's this going to stop? When is local city leadership going to stand up and go, okay, you guys got to do something. We got to do something with these people. The protest was billed as a direct action march. Love that term too. This is a direct action march, not a indirect action march. This is direct. We're going right at this action. So a direct action march with no specified target. We're just marching. We're going to do some marching and we're going to march directly, not indirect, directly, right? Though an online poster included a U.S. Department of Homeland Security logo with a red line through it. All right, so they're going after the feds, right? I mean, Homeland Security, they're an easy target. Just put up their little symbol and draw a red thing through it. Let's do some direct marching. And that is literally what they're doing. Shortly after the march began, police told the protesters they were detaining everyone within the Kettle boundary for the investigation of a crime. Okay, let's go. Police did not immediately provide details about the alleged criminal conduct. How about the last 150 days where this kind of thing's been going on a nightly basis? How about we just Throw that down there on the box. 150 nightly protests, Portland, period. That's really all you got to do, right? Sergeant Kevin Allen, a police spokesperson, later said there was reasonable suspicion that everyone inside the Kettle perimeter had committed at least one criminal violation. Oof. Police also said demonstrators had smashed windows and blocked traffic by marching in the street. Well, there you go. They smashed windows, right? And was everybody involved in at least one criminal violation? Don't know, but enough of them were Kettle, those bad boys, right? I mean, just box them in. Based on the size of the crowd and the resources, Portland Police Bureau had in place, the incident commander felt it was the safest and least intrusive way to protect public safety and stop the criminal destruction, Allen said. Good. We're finally getting somewhere. We're at a start. We're starting to reimagine. Maybe we're beyond reimagining. We're actually realizing, this isn't good for business. This isn't good for whatever is left of the Black Lives Matter movement message. That's not good for that. This really isn't. This kind of protesting we've got going on here isn't really good for anything. Unless you like anarchy. If that's your thing, I say go for it. I mean, you just anarch the heck out of that, right? That's your deal. That's fine. But here on the Seattle Real Estate Podcast, we're not really into anarchy. We're into being reasonable. And anarchy and being reasonable, those don't really go hand in hand, do they? No, they don't. The detained demonstrators were identified and photographed before being released. Those arrested are suspected of various crimes, including interfering with a police officer, second-degree disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, and unlawful possession of a firearm. And these guys, I mean, it's never major crimes. That's not necessarily true. The way that they get arrested is always on just some kind of, it's typically some kind of weak charge. But all this stuff going on with the federal buildings in Portland, that has added up to such a large thing that's happened that I think anytime somebody even looks sideways at a federal building now in downtown Portland, let's arrest them. I mean, I'm kind of joking, but I'm also kind of not. You got to do something to stop this nonsense, right? 2 of the 13 were booked into the Multnomah County Detention Center, and one 17-year-old boy was referred to the juvenile justice system. The others who were arrested received criminal citations and were released. One of those arrested was suspected in an earlier window vandalism, police said. Officers found items such as a crowbar, hammers, bear spray, knives, and a slugging weapon with rocks left behind in the Kettle perimeter, and reported people outside threw rocks and cans of beer at them. That nothing says, listen to my direct march more than throwing rocks and beer at the police. I mean, nothing really gets your message across than doing those kind of things, right? Because then people look at you and go, wow, you're throwing rocks and beer at the cops? You are one level up. I got to hand it to you. I want to join your cause. Whatever your cause is, whatever your message is, we're on your side, because that is some stuff that we want to be involved in too. I don't know how these people, how does this even get going? Hey, let's go throw rocks and beer at the cops. Let's just take some homemade weapons. Maybe we won't get caught. I don't know. Maybe we'll leave them there. Not really sure. The kettling of Portland protesters most recently garnered attention in January after 2 federal judges either dismissed or recommended throwing out civil suits, including one filed by the ACLU of Oregon that challenged the police practice. I'm all down with the police practice. Now, you can't go around willy-nilly kettling people. If they have done something that deserves to be kettled, I say kettle them. I do. The cases, which stemmed from the June 17th demonstrations in downtown Portland, were thrown out despite heavy objection from community members to the tactic and a critical report from Portland's Police Review Office. Man, we got to just review everything and reanalyze and reimagine and rethink everything before we do anything now, don't we? There's never any, hey, you go do that, Johnny on the spot, get it done. And we'll worry about the consequences later. There's never any of that. We have to rethink, got to reimagine. And in the meantime, this stuff just keeps going on. Wheeler, who serves as police commissioner and the mayor, That's kind of a weird deal, right? Said in January, he doesn't like how police have used the tactic during his tenure, but he didn't say the practice should be banned. He is really in between a rock and a hard place. He's had these protests go on for literally months and months and months, longer than they should have, because he has no spine. If kettling is to be used as a technique, it has to be well planned and well trained for, he told the Oregonian Oregon Live. Okay, but it sounds like it was, because they're contained the violence, and people had their pictures taken and then they were let go. So this kettling incident, to me, I mean, I didn't see anything where it went wildly sideways and people like, oh no, we got tear gassed at the end of our kettling experience too. Didn't hear about that, right? What I think we should do is have an open conversation. Yeah, because that's worked so well, is have an open conversation with all of our law enforcement partners and legislature leaders about which tools are appropriate and how to best use them. That conversation would go nowhere. You know why? Because you get two opposite, spectrums of what is reasonable and what isn't. And the peaceful protesters, I say kettle them. That's what I really do. I'm not saying kettling should be off the table, as Mayor Tennigan, but I think we should have a conversation about how we should use it as a tool and use it appropriately should we decide to use it. No more conversations. Arrest those people. Put them in jail. Charge them. And then you'll probably see some of this slow down a little bit, right? I think so. You take enough of them off the streets and you throw them in jail, guess what? They won't be out there. That's quite a strategy. Wheeler's office, when reached for comment Saturday, did not specifically address the recent kettling, saying tactical decisions are made by the incident commander. See, we're always just passing the buck. It's not our problem. It's just nuts. Tactical decisions are made by the incident commander. True. Okay. The police bureau engaged in extensive conversations, planning and training around a variety of tactics aimed at holding people who engage in crime, violence, intimidation, and criminal destruction accountable, said Jim Middaugh. He's Wheeler's spokesperson. So we have literally gone from the summer of love and taking selfies with these the same protesters doing the same exact stuff. We've gone from summer of love to we need to hold those who engage in crime, violence, intimidation, and criminal destruction accountable, because it's not looking good for my political office. I'm not looking good here. This isn't a good look for my office. People doing stuff that other people are saying, oh, that's not good. So here's a tweet. Oregon Representative Maxine Dexter, a Portland Democrat, was among those who objected to the kettling. I have been kettled when exercising my First Amendment right to peacefully protest. It is frightening and feels very much like being aggressively detained. Last night, it was reported this was done once again, and protesters had to share their identities or be arrested. This is wrong. Is it? Okay, so when you were protesting and exercising your First Amendment right, were you smashing windows? Were you committing crimes? Because if you weren't and you were kettled, all right, I could see you having a problem with that. But the cops don't usually kettle you unless you've done something. We should probably reimagine and rethink that, right? Journalist Suzette Smith and several other media members report, and when I say media, I mean, let's put that in air quotes, right? I mean, media. That could be anybody. I claimed I was media when I was at CHOP. I'm an old dude walking around with a GoPro. I'm media. I'm going to put this out on social media, which I did. Does that really make me media? Some would say yes. Others would say, hell no, you're just an appraiser. Yeah, you're probably right. But I get a lot of people to watch it anyway, right? So either way, it's kind of like, hey, let's go watch the real estate guy. Let's see what ridiculousness he can come up with. Journalist Suzette Smith and several other media members reported being included in the kettle. They're in the kettle. They're just mixing it up in the kettle, which spanned Northwest Marshall Street between 13th and 14th Avenue. So about a block. That's impressive. They did have a couple hundred people, 100 people, 200 people. Allen sent an email addressed to the media at 9:34 p.m. saying credentialed staff could leave the kettle perimeter at 14th Avenue and Marshall Street. Police also said anyone who was medically fragile or in need of medical attention could exit at that location. All right, so they're letting some people out. They're not being total hard asses, right? I mean, they're just not. But some members of the press, including independent journalist Marinay Stab, chose not to leave and reported being forced out of the perimeter by officers. Smith, meanwhile, reported being escorted a block away after leaving the perimeter, leaving her unable to see the kettled group. Oh, I can't see the kettled group. Something might be happening in the kettling. Among those arrested was independent journalist Alyssa Azar, 29, who's suspected of interfering with a police officer and second-degree disorderly conduct. Azar told the Oregon Live in 2020, she stands separately from the protest group and performs like a journalist. But the main reason she attends the protest is to document and highlight police brutality. Okay, but in all the protests I have been to, there hasn't been any police brutality. So if there is, I would like to see whatever video you have of the police brutality. Just let me see it. I want to see it. I want to do a podcast on it. All right, but you got to post it because I really haven't been seeing it. I see a lot of protesters doing stuff that is not peaceful and the police basically upholding the law for the citizens who don't necessarily think that the protesting is the best thing for the, society as a whole. So you've got cops kind of looking out for other people in the neighborhoods too, right? I mean, you just do. So documenting and highlighting police brutality. All right. I just haven't seen, I haven't seen much of it. I know it's out there, of course. But documenting and highlighting the police brutality, all the clips and videos and stuff that I've seen, it's like, all right, so this rioting crowd is out of control and the police are sending in tear gas. Maybe they're shooting a couple of rubber bullets. All right, we know that's coming. And then how many times in advance did they say, we need you to disperse by order of the mayor or by order of whatever. We need you all to go home. Anybody left will be arrested. They say that about 100 times. If you are dumb enough to still be there after that, you should probably have your ass arrested. That's kind of just the way I see it. So to talk about document and highlight police brutality, show me an example. Let's see it. And I know there are some, but what I am saying is this gal, Alyssa Azar, is saying, yeah, okay, this is what I'm doing. So I'd like to see that. I'm not necessarily someone that claims to be there objectively, Azar told the news organization. Allen said Saturday that members of the press were offered a chance to leave if they wished, as they were not being detained. The group of journalists that stayed was escorted from the perimeter individually like the rest of the group. So there was actually law and order going on here. The mass detentions marked the second night in a row that police responded forcefully to protesters in Portland. They are cracking down. They need to. I think what's really annoyed me is that basically police in Portland have been hamstrung. They just haven't been able to do what they need to do to control these situations. Officers from the U.S. Marshals Service and Federal Protective Service on Thursday fired tear gas, good. Flashbang, good. And smoke grenades, good. To push a crowd away from the Marco Hatfield U.S. Courthouse in scenes reminiscent of last summer's nightly violent clashes outside and around the court building when politically it was okay. We support your First Amendment rights. And then now it's suddenly gone to, this isn't good. This isn't a good look for Portland. We can't have this continuing. 2 demonstrators were also arrested in a Pearl District protest 2 weeks ago. The demonstration garnered an estimated 150 people and left windows broken at several businesses. That drives me nuts. It's like, what point are you getting across when you're just willy-nilly smashing in a window? It's so annoying. Because I'm on that small business ownership side. We don't even need to get into that. Let's go to the next article. And the reason I like this article is just from the get-go. You are not helping. That's the major quote. Black community leaders join mayor in denouncing anarchist-related vandalism. Then we got a picture of a bunch of tactical gear and some other stuff that was found inside the perimeter of, I think, the Kettle. Yeah, Portland police said people inside the perimeter of a march left behind a pile of items, including a crowbar. Yeah, we already read about that. That was the 100-person Kettle, right? Black community leaders on Monday joined Portland's mayor, deputy police chief, the sheriff, and the state's acting top federal prosecutor to decry a resurgence of vandalism to businesses in the federal courthouse, calling the targeted unrest at odds with the social justice movement. Has it been at odds, or has it throughout the whole thing? Because initially this was a Black Lives Matter, but then Black Lives Matter basically right after the George Floyd thing. I mean, did they not just smash out windows and ransack buildings willy-nilly? I mean, I watched it happen here in Bellevue, and I've got video of it. They just smashed windows and ransacked and held up signs that said Black Lives Matter. So, I think the whole Antifa thing has, they have definitely co-opted some of these marches and some of these movements. It's an opportunity for them to kind of fit in here. And yet I think Black community leaders are going, hey, wait a minute. You guys aren't helping here. You're not helping. And I think everybody has recognized that from the start. There was initially some peaceful protesting. There were legit protests and First Amendment right. Yeah. Okay, you can do that. But you can't bash out windows for months and months and months and months and months and not expect there to be some repercussions, right? They accused anarchists, back to the Black leadership in Portland, they accused anarchists of co-opting the Black Lives Matter movement and causing senseless damage while they spoke out in support of Police Bureau's renewed use last week of a mass arrest tactic. So they're like, yeah, kettle those bad boys. Kettle them. Kettle them all up. It's my new favorite word, right? The misguided and miseducated anarchists, that's interesting. Misguided and miseducated. Are they miseducated? They just believe something wildly differently, right? And miseducated anarchists reject civility and instead intentionally create mayhem through criminally destructive behavior, tearing up our city, and this must stop. Hear, hear. I agree. And this is from Abel Gordy, a former state senator, said during the video news conference, "You are not helping. You are hurting Black people. We need peacemakers and peacekeepers." It's always so interesting, right? Because you get this narrative that it's Black Lives Matter, and then you've got the leadership speaking out, hey, this isn't part of our deal. This isn't helping. And we've heard this all along. You've heard so many elders in the Black community stepping up and speaking out and going, I think one of the most interesting comments that has been a common theme in all this has been, man, and we're talking in whole about the Black community and the Black Lives Matter movement. Man, we can't even keep our own movement together. It gets jacked by these, anarchists. So, they're frustrated that even the Black Lives Matter thing, it was a George Floyd issue, all that stuff, okay, recognizing that. But then somebody takes it over and kind of runs with it, and now we're kettling people because we need to stop that stuff, get Portland back on its feet and get things going if that's going to happen. Former state senator Margaret Carter said she stands with people who take to the streets to seek change, but I don't stand with you in seeking our city being torn apart. Okay. Agreed. I agree. And I've said this all along. It's just that I don't see many of the peaceful protests actually end up peaceful. I see them being violent riots that impact small business. So that's where I draw the line. And I've always drawn the line. It's like, oh, hey, there's a building over there. Let's go graffiti it. And then when we're done, we're going to take our crowbar, smash in the windows, because nothing gets across a good social message than smashing in a window, right? I mean, because that's been ongoing, and couple $1 billion worth of damage throughout the United States, that must be giving a message that is both positive and constructive and is doing more than reimagining and rethinking. No, it's just violence towards building. And then people say, but if the object is inanimate, is it really violence? How about we come to your house, peaceful protesters, and we'll do the same thing. Do a little reconstruction with a crowbar, maybe, update your paint scheme on the exterior with a little bit of art. And we'll do that to your entire house and see if you feel like it's been violence. I don't know. I kind of think that you would probably go, yeah, this isn't a good look for our house. Maybe you don't care about your house. Maybe you don't have a house. Maybe, I don't know. But the rest of us, we like our houses, we like our buildings, and we like them ungraffitied and with complete windows. That's just, I know, it's weird. It's a personal preference thing. The window's not bashed out. I really draw the line there. Mayor Ted Wheeler, City Attorney Robert Taylor, and Deputy Police Chief Chris Davis defended the police decision to kettle what they described as an unruly crowd on Friday night in the Pearl District, surrounding and boxing a group while blocking off all exit points to make arrests. Arrest those people. I've been saying this for months. Man, is this going to go on for like years? Probably, right? As we're reimagining and rethinking the end of this, it'll just keep going. And Wheeler vowed that police will continue to revise their tactics to address the ongoing vandalism. That's right. The election's over. New tactics. I'm just hearing loudly and clearly from our community for months that they're sick and tired of this criminal destruction. Yes, you have been, but you haven't been listening because they've been saying this for months. And months ago, you were out there and City Council was out there of Portland taking pictures with these same people. Taking pictures, taking selfies for the Insta. Oh, look at this. Look at how the cute, peaceful protesting. Not so cute now, is it? No. I'm just hearing loudly and clearly from our community for months that they're sick and tired of this criminal destruction, he said. The community at large has already figured out that this has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, which we said at the very beginning. We said that. And we just kind of did. But you're racist because you don't want your windows bashed out by Black Lives Matter people. Or any noble causes. This is just about getting together to break stuff because they think they can get away with it. That's the bottom line right there. I mean, this doesn't really have much to do with Black Lives Matter. Although when I have covered these, somebody's always got a Black Lives Matter poster, whatever. They're doing some chants, but a lot of it doesn't really have much to do with Black Lives Matter. Buoyed by recent favorable rulings from 2 federal judges and a state judge, the police bureau used kettling for the first time in several years. Davis said police employed the controversial tactic peacefully without having to use munitions, and it helped curtail further damages to businesses and other properties as people blocked streets and damaged windows in a gathering advertised as a direct action. The circumstances on the ground fit the legal parameters for such mass arrests, said Davis and Taylor, the city attorney. Davis cited similar direct actions promoted by self-described anarchists, including one on February 27th, also in the Pearl District, that caused significant damage to businesses. So we've got these things going on kind of on the weekends. And I think the police and I think finally Mayor Ted down in Portland has figured out, this isn't looking good for me. We need to do a 180-degree turn on this thing. We need to get this under control because downtown Portland, not looking good. When a group acts in a coordinated manner to engage in criminal conduct, its members can be detained for purposes of a criminal investigation, Taylor said. All right. So police followed the letter of the law, and now I'm looking at a photo in this article, just a window bashed in. Those things are expensive. Police surrounded about 100 people, took their names and photographs, and arrested 13. I say arrest all 100. And then sort it out later, right? That's after the group had blocked traffic and refused to get out of the street, Davis said. Officers allowed legal observers and journalists to leave, he said. Of those arrested, the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office has so far pursued cases against 1 adult on interfering with police, disorderly conduct and resisting arrest allegations, and 1 juvenile. The District Attorney's Office rejected 1 other case against a woman accused of concealing a concealed weapon and unlawfully possessing a loaded firearm in a public place, and asked police to provide more documentation. All right, so, we're actually doing something now. Former Trailblazer Terry Porter said he's deeply concerned at NBA, National Basketball Association. He was a good player, said he's deeply concerned about the city and called the widespread vandalism a disturbing distraction to needed reforms. This is not what the Black Lives Movement is about, he said. It does not make me as a black man any safer. Wheeler, who on New Year's Day made a similar plea to address anarchist violence, said that then he wanted to meet with federal, state, and local law enforcement officials to stem the violence. And he was talking about, we're going to get something going. We're going to do something. But really nothing has happened. And this is kind of the first example where we've seen a little bit of a change in tactic to what the police are doing. I hope they keep it up because it puts pressure on people. It puts this in the news. And it's like, okay, we got a lot of people saying that what's going on in Portland is not acceptable. Police, arrest as many as you can, put them in jail. Prosecutors in Portland, you need to start actually handing out some sentences for this stuff. Otherwise, this is going to go on forever. All right, so that's it for this podcast. I'll talk a little bit about my Maui trip if you care. So if you want a jet at this point, I'd say go. I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes. So I stayed in the Wailea area of Maui. It's a super nice area. It's just south of Kihei. It's about a 20-minute drive from the airport. It was pretty fun. I did a bunch of snorkeling. I did a bunch of sitting on the beach. What else did I do? I did the trip to Molokini, which is a crater a few miles offshore. Super fun. I swam with turtles. I videoed turtles. I did a lot of sunset photography. I took both the camera that I shoot on, the M50, Canon M50, and shot on that, and took a whole bunch of video. Took all my GoPros. I think I had 4 or 5 GoPros, and I was just running around with those. So I got a bunch of footage. I'll try and put that together this weekend. We did have flash flood warnings. That was exciting. A bunch of rain right when I got there. It rained really hard. It's what happens when you're in an island in the Pacific. What weather comes through and it just kind of dumps. Got a couple of big mountains on Maui, and those attract weather. And so clouds come over the top of the mountain and just dump rain. So it was even raining when I left there yesterday. So super fun trip, but it's also nice to be back. It's difficult to be back. I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt right now because when I picked out my shirt this morning, I'm like, I'm going to try and continue the good weather, warm vibes by wearing a short sleeve shirt in Seattle on March 18th. That's not a wise thing to do because it means you got to wear a big puffy coat over your short sleeve shirt. So not a good decision, but I just didn't want to have to put on a long sleeve shirt quite yet. So good trip. It was a fun trip, and we'll put up some of the videos if you guys even care. I think most people are like, hey, Sean, just go back to reading the news, which I'm going to do. So I'm going to record another podcast here. I hope this one was okay because I'm shaking off the rust. I can kind of feel, haven't been doing this for a few days here, a week and a half, closer to 2 weeks than 1.5. But thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for being part of the podcast. And for all the storylines that you guys sent me that I didn't record, I'm going to try and get through a bunch of those now, and we'll talk about it. So again, thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. I'm going to catch up with you guys on the next one. Bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.